Hello and welcome to the latest Mug Queens Mudcast with Jojo and Ami is back.
Yay! Hello. Yeah,
How you doing?
To be honest, I'd like to say that I feel energized after my break, but given that we've been up all weekend, I'm actually really tired.
I'm looking so pretty.
Okay, what I should clarify is that we're actually all in the same room, so when she says that, she's being fully sarcastic. And I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
So today is a totally self-indulgent episode because I am absolutely fangirling over Margaret Schlachter.
Margaret Schlamalama Ding Dong.
Yep. Now, she has come over here for the last 10 days,
Feels
2
like
weeks.
longer.
It feels like she's been here forever and we're happy to chuck her on a plane tomorrow.
She's such a babe, don't listen to her.
But basically, she is obstacle racing history. She is the first female pro obstacle racer in the world.
She's basically obstacle racing media personified as well now. She's everywhere. She's really on the ball with everything that she delivers. She really, really puts herself out to bring everybody like up to the minute news about events and, you know, issues surrounding obstacle racing.
Yeah.
It's not just like, oh, he came first, she came first. It's really sort of in-depth, you know, opinion pieces and, you know, like she's just a pretty cool person who's obviously super passionate about the sport and, you know, keeping everybody abreast of what's going on.
So if you're ever at a major event like World Championship, something like that, just look for the flannel and that will be
her.
Margaret. Yeah. Just search for
Or
the
a
flannel.
farmer. It's a toss-up.
But okay, so without further ado, Margaret is in the same room as us. So, welcome, Margaret. How you doing?
I'm good, thanks. It's always fun to be talked about in the room with my hired driver for the last 2 weeks, and race partner in crime at Rat Race Dirty Weekend. So, yeah.
You've done what? Rat Race Dirty Weekend?
Rat Race Dirty Weekend. Then Nuclear, then went up to Europe's Toughest Mudder and covered the race, then went back to Nuclear and talked to a few more people and took some more photos, and I don't know, what else did we do there? We just kind of hung around. And then went over to Nuts Challenge today just to go run the course a little bit and go see what Nuts is all about. Now I'm sitting here, not really sure what part of the country I'm in currently, but and I saw some old stones and a couple other things along the way.
You've been doing some touristy bits at the same time.
Glad to know that's what we're famous for, some old stones.
Not Stonehenge though, we just drove by it. The other old stones.
Poor man Stonehenge. So given that you've obviously done a lot of racing in other countries, this is your sort of first footfalls on UK courses. How do they compare to what you're used to?
Well, I would say first, Rat Race Dirty Weekend is like no other event in the world, at least that I know of. I would say that, as I wrote about last week, this week, wherever we are right now, in time, that it's about, I don't know, I'd say 30% or so about the actual obstacle race itself, which is awesome. So I should say the race itself is amazing, you know, with all the obstacles and everything. But the weekend, all the other shenanigans around, including carrying Mr. Pete Reese on a carpet through the festival. I mean, just moments you can't make up, and 3-legged backward races and other stuff that should just be left at Rat Race.
Yeah.
But no, it's been great, and the Nuclear was great. It was as someone who's watched like Downton Abbey, it's almost like it's almost like what James has done there is he's created like a you know, almost like a festival type, you know, I guess in the past it would be like a cricket match or something, but now it's an obstacle race. You know, no, it's almost like that, like when the, you know, the Manor House or whatever would have their like, I don't know, their fairs. They're like country fair.
Yeah. No, I get what you're saying.
Yeah. I guess I'm not articulating it well, but yeah, it's sort of like that. And then Nuts, it's just kind of nuts there, honestly. I mean, it is a brutal just natural course that the elements, the water was warm today because it's almost summertime here.
Yeah.
So, but winter, I could imagine that's just awful.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Did you get a lot of dirt in your skirt? Kill me, seriously. Honestly, a caveat here. We have been awake for I don't even know how many hours now. Like, we're not well, people. So, basically, you have to disregard everything that you've listened to today, I think.
No, I mean, well, I don't know what time you got up on Saturday morning, but I know Jojo and I got up at 5:20 in the morning and drove from her house in Bournemouth to Nuclear.
Mm-hmm.
Then from there, the 100 miles to Stamford for Europe's Toughest Mudder. I think Jojo, you slept like 2 or 3 hours maybe?
Yeah, I tried to get some sleep in the car between like 4:30, 5 and 7, but the rain did not help. Where did that come from? It was really rude.
And then I slept, I think, or passed out, I would say, on the way back to Nuclear for about an hour. And then I know the two of us, we probably went to sleep, sleeping in the caravan at Nuts last night, probably like 10 plus p.m. So you guys can do the math from about 5:30 in the morning Saturday morning until about 10:30 at night on Sunday night with no sleep. So
that's horrific. I had a micro nap for I think probably what felt just like a minute and a half in the back of a Jeep at Tough Mudder, which you still managed to document on camera, which is very stealthy of you. And then at probably about 5 a.m, I literally lay down where I stood in the field at Europe's Toughest Mudder and fell asleep on the floor for half an hour, which was honestly the most comfortable and amazing nap of my entire life. Also managed to get documented on camera, and a security guard thought that I was injured and came over to check on me. Pete had to assure him that I was actually fine. So yeah, we're pretty tired. But no, this is not about how tired we are. This is about Margaret.
Mm-hmm.
So, sort of, what made you want to come over? Like, what was the motivation behind your trip?
So I think I was at the first OCR World Championships. I've been in obstacle racing since 2010. Yeah. And obviously, I want to go everywhere in the world that I can possibly go because I just have a wanderlust. The gene, I think. I don't know.
Hobo. Maybe tomorrow I'll settle down.
Yeah, so I don't know. I love traveling and I love being able to go places, and for a long time, just coming over here or going to Europe in general, keep going to Europe. It's just really expensive for Americans. The exchange rate now is a lot better than it was the last time I was here in 2004.
All right, so thanks.
But no, so the opportunity came this time. I saved up some miles, and I had heard from that first World Championships, it was Pete Reese and Lucy Martlew, who Lucy doesn't really do obstacle races anymore, but she was quite involved back then. Yeah, so she said, oh, you have to come over, you have to come to Nuclear. And then Pete said, oh, you have to come over and you have to come to Rat Race. And, obviously there's other races as well. I've heard about Nuts for years. And then, I don't know, I think it was after this past OCR World Championships, I was just finally like, I'm just going to bite the bullet. I'm going to come over. Jojo's been nice enough to basically drive me around the entire country when I wasn't, and then I have family here too, out in Bradford-on-Avon, outside of Bath, and I hadn't seen my cousins in 23 years. We did the math, and my aunt in 8 or 9 years, and one of my cousins has a daughter that's 12 that I just met for the first time. So I spent 3.5 days doing family stuff. So I figured, what better way when you've got Rat Race 30 weekend, Nuclear the next weekend, Europe's Toughest Mudder happened to fall at the same time too, and then make a little side trip to Nuts. So I feel like I got like a pretty good taste of like the UK obstacle racing scene in a very short period of time.
Yeah, they're fairly different races.
Yeah.
Altogether, to be fair.
So describe UK obstacle racing in 3 words.
Ooh, bitch.
Cold, wet, and muddy.
Oh, It's just described like British summer. While you're at it. Cheers.
Well, what I've learned is the weather is perfect during the week, and then the moment that you're headed to an obstacle race, the clouds roll in, and it starts to rain.
This pretty much sums up bank holidays, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's very, very true.
Yeah.
But it is why we can hold on to rigs while it's still wet. It's because we've got no bloody choice.
You're welcome.
So, obviously we know your history pretty well because Jojo is a demented fangirl, but could you give the listeners like a little potted history of what you've been doing, and then how you transitioned from doing the running good to doing the writing good too?
I can write real good. No, just kidding. No, I mean, it all started back in 2010. Literally, a friend of mine liked this thing called Spartan Race before the first Spartan Race ever happened. And I looked it up, and I said, oh, that looks interesting. Wasn't a runner, doesn't do anything like that. Went to the first race, like I'm sure pretty much everybody listening does. They got talked into it. They found it somehow, really random. They go to their first race, and they're like, where can I do this again?
Take my money.
Yeah, exactly. It's a lot easier to find your next one now. In 2010, we didn't even have a name for what this was. Like, we're like, is it adventure racing? No, it's not adventure racing. What is it? So I just Googled everything I could, got hooked, and some might say, probably my family, obsessed. And then I just started taking it seriously. In 2011, I did my first Tough Mudder, and from there I crossed the finish line. They said, you qualified for World's Toughest Mudder, and I'm like, well, what's that? They're like, it's a 24-hour obstacle race. And I said, well, I've never done anything like that, but they hook you by saying that you get $100 off if you signed up in the first couple days. So I said, all right, I'll sign up for it, and you can fake a lot of things, but you can't fake 24 hours of running.
Mm-hmm.
So that started, that's why I started the website Dirt in Your Skirt, and it started out as just my own personal little blog, and
Which I was an avid
reader. so all I would do
sycophant today, Brown.
So what I would do back then is that I would say, like, I'm gonna go run whatever, and then on Facebook, and on the Facebook page, I'd go and run that during the day, and then I would write about it that evening, and I didn't really have anything else going on in life, so like I was single, I was working at a private boarding school and living in the dorm and all that sort of stuff, so so I just wrote about it, and that was my, like, you need some accountability. I didn't have anyone to train with, I didn't have anybody that I knew that liked this stuff, so that's what I did.
That's how it started. It was more of an accountability thing.
It was purely my training log and accountability for the world to read.
Bloody hell. And it's evolved into so much more than that. I mean...
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and then, at the time, too, you get a new pair of shoes. And back then, it's not like today where you get a new pair, you can Google it. There's, like, a million shoe reviews for obstacle racing. And so, like, back then, like, I'd get a new pair of shoes. I remember I got my first pair of Innovates in 2011. And...
You know the date.
No, I do, because I wrote a blog post about it, because nobody was wearing Innovates in the States yet for obstacle racing. And so I'm like, oh, this shoe's great, this shoe's crap, this shoe, whatever, don't wear cotton, don't do this, things that are just, but nobody had written about it yet. So kind of right place, right time, took it seriously. Got some sponsors came on board because I did well in some races, and then by 2012 I had a sponsor come on that said, we want to sponsor you, but we want to pay you like a salary to be on our pro team.
Nice.
And it was crazy. So I was on the same pro team with the MMA female fighter Ronda Rousey. That's my claim to fame. We were on the same pro team.
Love her. Amazing. So, Jojo's just exploded, by the way. So that's it now. Bye, everyone.
I was, like I said, a lot of hard work, but a lot of right place, right time. And in spring 2012, I got to a point in my job. I was head of admissions and college placement for this private school, and my job wasn't great for my physical or mental health. No. And quit my job, and luckily with having this sponsor on board, it could pay for my rent, all that sort of stuff. And then right around that time, another podcast interview that I said, the person said to me, they're like, well, you're the first female professional in this sport that we know of, because I don't think anyone else at this point has quit their job to just race. And I was like, I guess so. Like, I didn't really, it wasn't like, I'm going to set out to do this. Like, everything just kind of happened. And then in 2013, so Riding High was like 5th in the Spartan Points series and it was their world rankings, but there aren't that many races outside of North America at that point. So, I finished 5th in the world that year for women. And,
So cool.
and so that was fun, and had a bunch of podiums, and like, it's fun. That was all fun, and raced a ton. And then in 2013 was at a race, and it was a trampoline obstacle, and you had to double jump on the trampoline. So you jumped off a platform down, and then it was like a 5-foot platform you jumped up onto, like a ninja type obstacle.
That sounds like a bloody stupid obstacle.
So it was really fun looking, but I did a double jump to get the big giant boost up. And my ankle when I went down to do the second jump, my ankle went pop, pop.
Oof.
And I sprained the inside and outside, a 2+ sprain, and sprains are like 1 to 3. So 2+ is pretty close to the worst you can do. And yeah, that pretty much, it was like, you can't run anymore, or like for a while. Like, you can't, I was on crutches for a month, and it took a year before I could run without pain.
So that was like the catalyst for you taking a step
That
back.
was taking a step back. And right around that time as well, we had Mud and Obstacle, I think that's what it was. Yeah, Mud and Obstacle magazine in the States.
It's a catchy name.
And so they brought me on as a contributing editor, which means I wrote articles for them every issue. And around that time, I think, I was interviewed as an expert in a bunch of other articles, and I think as well About.com started a obstacle and extreme racing piece of their website.
Yeah.
And so they contacted me and said, do you want to be our expert? I said, yeah, sure. So all of a sudden it was like writing started to be more and more and more. And then a bit later, Mud Run Guide, I remember I sat down with Brett Stewart. We had done a online weekly, like, newsy magazine type show called Obstacle and Adventure Weekly, where I interviewed people, but video stuff, as as Amy knows, Pete's the one who does the editing, but editing and uploading a weekly video show is
just so much work.
a lot of work. And so that kind of went by the wayside after about a year of doing that. And then I started to, Brett, at the very first OCR World Championships, he and the co-founder, Brett Stewart, and the co-founder of Mud Run Guide, Chris Lewis, they sat me down. They said, well, we want to chat with you. We're really upping our news and editorial side of our website, and we would want to hire you as our editor-in-chief. So that's what I've been doing since then. And then most recently, I don't know, now almost a year ago, I just said, screw it. I want to do a podcast. I love podcasts. I love listening to podcasts. And I've been interviewing women for my website for years, but in the written form. And as we're talking right now, it's way more fun. And started a podcast. So Dirt Your Skirt has less like personal stuff on it now, and it's more just the podcast these days, but it just kind of has evolved over time.
Brilliant.
And then
the podcast is pretty awesome though. The stuff that you got, you know, the people you're getting on are like, I know Ginger has brought about 5 books in the last 3 or 4 podcasts that you've brought out, because you've had, like, you know, Katie Boland and the Shaman.
Oh yeah.
On. Yeah.
Yep.
And do you know what I mean? So it's really interesting stuff, and it's not even obstacle related, and it's really interesting.
No, that's where you kind of get a little piece of all this random stuff I'm into outside of obstacle racing.
Yeah, it's cool.
So yeah, and I mean, it's been great. I mean, Amy, you've been on the podcast. Jojo, eventually we'll get you on the podcast one of these days.
Yes, Jojo.
No, it's fine. We're doing it now. But yeah, so it is cool though. And like, before you did your first obstacle racing race, did you? Yeah.
Eloquent.
Yeah. Thanks. You're welcome. Can you imagine having got to this point?
No.
Because you go to Nicaragua, you're going to Europe in June with all this obstacle racing stuff, and you're in England, covering stuff. And could you ever have imagined that it would get to this point?
No. No, not at all. I mean, when I started, it was just on a whim. It was just like, oh, this will be fun. And then I kind of have a personality. It's like when I took up road biking for fun, road biking became something I did every day for like the year plus that I decided I was a quote unquote road biker. So now I'm mountain biking, but no, I didn't know. And I remember we had to write a paper when I was getting my undergraduate degree, and it said like, where will you be in 10 years or something like that. Yeah. And like, I was like, oh, maybe I'll just be in this like nice house and whatever. And that was more than 10 years ago now, but I don't know. I don't have a plan anymore. It's like people have like their life plan where they're like, I want to be doing this at this age. I want to be doing, and what I've learned in the last couple of years is the less I plan for anything, the more it seems to all work out. So no. Before all this, I would not have imagined that this would, I mean, when I quit my job, I was told that by multiple people that I was dumb, I was stupid, I was making a terrible decision. I was even told I'm going to regret this. This is one of the worst decisions of my life.
Oh, come on.
And the funny thing now is some of those people that said that have come into the obstacle racing fold in somehow, some way, shape, or form. Yeah. So I don't really like to call people out, but it was just interesting to see people that were saying that, you're never going to get anywhere. This is stupid. To then, like, a couple of years later, they're involving it in the activities for maybe a school I used to work for.
If you can't beat them, join them.
Like, can I ask, though, with all the stuff that you've done, all the stuff that you've achieved, and you're still achieving and, having access to all these brilliant women that you're interviewing and the experiences that you get to have, like, what's one of the biggest things that you've learned about yourself?
I mean, I think that I can say that the podcast and stuff, all the women I have this like little journal. It's actually packed away in my bag that I haven't touched this entire time. I think it's in this one, or it's the other one I have at home. What? I was doing an exercise, and it's like, who are women you admire and why do you admire them? I realized that all the women I wrote down, whether they're people I've interviewed in the podcast or people I've met throughout my life or been mentors, every single one of them does whatever they want. They are so authentically themselves, and they don't make any apologies for it. Like, they are, they are who they are, and they know who they are, and they're at least publicly I feel like they know who they are, and they're not afraid to fully put it out there and just do things and be bold and just 100% be themselves, which I think is really hard, and I know it's something I even struggle with. I think all of us struggle with it, but I think that's what I've learned, is that I just take away all those little messages that they have,
You just sort of feed off their awesomeness.
Yeah. I think it gives me a little bit more strength too, because I'm like, well, if they're like 100% themselves and it's working, and they've like put themselves out there in a public way, this way, that way, whatever, like, maybe I can put it out there a little bit more too, and not be like, oh, well, somebody gonna worry what this set, like what with it,
Yeah. Give us fucks. I think.
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry, give fewer fucks.
Yeah.
Wow, Amy, you need to go to sleep. Yeah. Who's been your favourite person to interview?
Awkward.
No, you don't need to. Like, I realise I'm sitting here, but I'm not.
Remy, the dog. No. No, I didn't interview Remy. Oh, we talked about Remy. Yeah. I really enjoyed talking to Katie. I've interviewed a lot of people, and ones that haven't come out yet too, obviously. Yeah. But I really like talking to Katie Bowman. She is just super cool, and she makes you think a lot about, like, her writing and stuff. She makes you think a lot about how we do everything. Like, her book is the book that I read probably almost 2 years ago now that made me stop, like, pretty much going to a gym and working out.
Yeah.
Because she talks about movement versus exercise and how a lot of us are exercisers, but we're movement deficient. Like, you go to the gym for an hour and you, like, crush it at, like, CrossFit or, like, whatever. You know, it doesn't have to be CrossFit. You do whatever and you crush it. And then you came from your office job or whatever, you sat all day.
Yeah.
And then you crush it in the gym, and then you go home and you sit all night.
Yeah.
And so she's like, you're actually not moving at all. So she pretty much changed the way that I lived. Instead of, like, going to the gym and, like, trying to do whatever. Now it's like, I'll sit on the floor where you keep trying to get me to sit on the couch. And, but you know, she talked about using all these different muscle groups and just walking and doing things and, like, walking to the post office instead of driving there. And you know,
so it's everyday changes that you can make that actually do have
Yeah.
like a
Yeah.
big difference
definitely.
on
Yeah.
your fitness. It's nice that you can sort of take away a little bit of something from everyone you interview, because like it's weird because I've been interviewed on it, but as a general rule, like, they're all very strong in their own way, and you can just nick little ideas from them, and it's cool. It's a very interesting journey, and, like, I find with some of them, like, there's people that might appear like somewhat untouchable, you know, or, you know, unrelatable, but then you draw out these little nuggets from them. You think, actually that humanizes that person again, or, you know, I didn't know that, and oh, maybe I have this in common with this, like, super cool human being, and I never really realized it. So that's the main thing I actually really like about your podcasts. You do have an ability to, like, draw these things out of people and show them in a slightly different light to what we've been used to.
Well, thanks.
I like that.
Thanks.
So Margaret's not going to be able to get out the door. We won't be able to get on the plane.
No, she'll have to check her ego.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's my goal. My goal every episode, whether it's an athlete or especially when I'm interviewing an athlete, especially an obstacle racing athlete, like, if they've been interviewed a lot, I'll say, you know, this isn't the time. I'm like, if you want to talk about this, we can, but my goal is not to talk about, like, what you eat, how you train, that sort of thing, because there are lots of other podcasts to choose from, and that's what they do, and it's great, and, like, somebody needs to do that. But I'm more interested, like, what are your family dynamics growing up, like,
Tell me about your childhood.
you know.
Yeah. Okay, fine.
Yeah, no, I mean, like, Amy, I learned that, like, about being that you did, like, the childhood acting type stuff, and like, you know, and we ended up talking about that, and I think it's more, the stuff you do in obstacle racing is cool, but I think it's even more interesting that you're a large animal vet, and that's not a field that most women veterinarians I know are small animal.
No, you're right. You're totally right.
So, yeah, I mean, I just like to shine those lights on things where it's like when I talked to Rose Wetzel, she's one of 11 kids and grew up in, like,
Sounds painful.
in a house, that very loving house. They always had what they needed, but a house that she said at times where her mom was like, go fill up all the water buckets in the house because we couldn't pay the water bill this month.
Jesus Christ.
You know, and, like, I just interviewed Amelia Boone, and we talked about how she did musical theater growing up in a cappella groups.
I never knew that, and I was like, oh my god, that's, you know, because I did a lot of musical theatre and stuff, and I was like, that's amazing. She can look so stoical at times, and you wouldn't have thought that she was like, she can crack out the jazz hands. But, yeah, amazing.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what I love is that, you know, and, like, Gabrielle Reese and I, the volleyball player who I've looked up to since I was a little kid, so when she said yes, should do it, I was like, oh my gosh, she's been on the cover of Sports Illustrated how many times? But so when I interviewed her, like, I knew she had a full knee replacement surgery, but I didn't know that she rallied against the use of opioids. She rallied against, like, just being prescribed opioids all the time because of opioid addiction.
Oh,
That's
wow.
pretty impressive, to be fair.
So it's like I end up learning things about people, even when I've done research, read their books, you know, kind of done their bio stuff before I interview them. I still learn a ton, I feel like.
Well, all that stuff's been sanitized and edited, and
To make them look amazing and untouchable.
But speaking of, like, books and things like that,
Haven't you written one of those?
I did.
Published author.
I did write a book. That the book story. I love telling this story because, I think that we all have our path in life,
Right.
and we get to junctions where we can switch gears and switch directions, and the cosmos, whatever you believe in, will tell you if you're doing the right thing, I think.
Okay.
And so when I quit my job, three friends had quit their jobs around the same time period for various reasons.
Mm-hmm.
Like three very different. One was an article I read in a magazine, so I didn't actually know her. But you read an article, you're like, oh, I knew this person, but you don't actually know them at all. But no, so her story was in this article that I stumbled across, and then another friend quit her job to write a book and got it crowdfunded, and then another friend quit her job to be a modern nomad. And she's been on my podcast as well. And so I quit my job, kind of being like, okay, well, I have this income with this sponsor and whatnot, so I can make this work. It's going to be like pennies. But still, I can do it. And the day after I sent in the email to work and went into work and said, I'm done, I got an unsolicited email out of the blue that said, do you want to turn your website into a book?
All right.
If you need validation that you're on the right track, there's nothing. And I thought it was a joke at first because people don't get emails that are like, hey, you want to write a book, Amy?
Yeah. Please just enter your bank details. This,
exactly.
We'll get right back to you.
Exactly. It's like the Nigerian whatever needs your money. So I emailed them back thinking it was basically just kind of BS because I was like, this is weird.
Yeah.
And I remember we met at a coffee shop, my original editor, and he brings me a stack of books. He's like, these are the books I've worked on right now. This is the publishing company. And so they've got offices in Vermont and in Hong Kong. So
That went in their mum's basement.
yeah, exactly.
Amazing.
So it was all above board, all legit. And I said yes. And then I had 3 months to write a book. And it was written all between the American Thanksgiving time, so November to January, from in 2012 and into 2013.
Can we buy
And
this
then,
book over
oh yeah,
here?
the book's available on all booksellers still. It's Obstacle Race Training: How to Beat Any Course, Compete Like a Champion, and Change Your Life. And for anybody that's wondering why a title that's that long and like that, publishers pick the title. So
I got a signed copy.
No.
But yeah, I mean, you can order them. Amazon, whatever they sell them. So you can still get it.
Available at all good book outlets.
It's interesting though how much the industry's changed since it was written. So it's almost pieces of it are still very relevant, and then other pieces are like little time capsules of the past as well.
Would you update it?
I would update it if my publisher wanted to.
I totally think you should.
I think that doing a book was a 2-year process before.
Yeah.
So it didn't come out until April 2014, and it was written in 2012.
So it's almost like pre-platinum rig.
Yeah, it's
explosions.
totally before any of that stuff came out and was happening, and my personal nutrition's changed, so while some things would stay the same in that chapter, other things would definitely be changing at this point. So, but like I said, books are time capsules.
Yeah, I know you are quite right.
So it's got tons of photos though, and I love all the photos, so even if you don't like to read, you can just look at pictures.
True story.
I mean, I wrote it as a coffee table book. Somebody panned me and said they hated it. But I wrote it, and my publisher wanted me to write a book that if you were in an airport and you had no idea what obstacle racing is, you could pick up the book, flip through it, and be able to sign up for your first race.
What was the person's problem with it that panned it?
They were like, they're really short chapters, and it's like something you'd read when you're on the toilet. And I was like, well, actually, that's kind of the point.
All right. That's the point. You've missed it.
Because the chapters are really all short. It's like it's about 50,000 words, so it's 100 and something pages long, but a lot of photos. So it's a quick read, and you could probably read it in a couple hours if you wanted to.
Well, if someone wants to get good at obstacle racing, I feel like they probably just want to crack on with it rather than read 200 pages per chapter. Do you know what I mean? It's actually shorter than my thesis. That was.
But the title's probably not as long as mine. I can't even remember what it is. I've repressed it all. Oh dear.
Good times.
So what's on the radar for the rest of the year?
Well, I have a wedding coming up in July,
I forgot
so
about that.
I am working behind the scenes every day on obstacle racing. So I think my trip that was possibly going to be in June, there might be another trip instead, for a side project. But, so I probably won't be back into Europe for a little while. But otherwise, getting married in July, and then we get into the fall season all of a sudden, and it's I'll be at Survival Run Canada doing their social media, and then the next weekend be in Texas for the U.S. Championships.
Everyone wants to call it the US World
Yeah,
Championships.
because they're so used to it's a group that puts on the OCR World Championships, but it's the U.S. OCR Championships, and then right after, like 2 weeks after that, is Spartan Race World Championships in Lake Tahoe, so I'll be there. And then like another like 2 weeks after that, or 3 weeks after that, is OCR World Championships in Blue Mountain, Canada, and I'll be there.
And then it's the sleeping World Championship.
and then,
No. Wait.
And then there's World's Toughest Mudder a couple weeks after that, and
then hibernation for Christmas.
Yeah, I think so. There's a few other pieces that we have that are way behind the scenes right now, so nothing's really, I can't even say it right now, but hopefully there are going to be at least one, maybe two really cool trips in the next year or so that will bring me probably to the Middle East somewhere.
Well, that's pretty tantalizing.
But I don't know, and this is what happens when you work in my job. You have conversations with people, and they say, yeah, we want to do this, we want to do this, and then when it comes to time to talk budgets and stuff, then all of a sudden you're not doing it, or it just every 10 opportunities somebody says might happen, maybe one will actually happen in this industry.
Sport of broken promises.
But I mean, it's the nature of the beast. Races come and go. Races have different budgets, and you just kind of roll with it. And luckily, I have a partner that is okay with me saying, like, hey, I know I just came back from a trip like 4 days ago, but I just got offered an opportunity to go down to the Copper Canyons in Mexico, and I have to get on a plane tomorrow. And
okay, bye.
And is that okay? And he'll be like, yeah, that's fine. Like, especially when a big opportunity comes up to go, like,
you
go
don't
somewhere.
ask no permission.
Sorry, like to interrupt, because it literally just popped into my head. What would be the ultimate thing that you would love to cover?
I mean, I think that it's hard. It's more like regional places to go and cover stuff.
Still?
Like, I would love to go down to South Africa. And again, I did get to go there a long time ago.
They're good at obstacle racing,
And
aren't they?
yeah, they've got some great races down there. So if I ever get that opportunity. And then Asia. I mean, Asia's an emerging market that I've never been to Asia. I've never been to the Middle East. So, no, I've never been to Asia. But I'm trying to think where I had been. But, obviously I've been to Australia. I've been to Australia once, and New Zealand. I just love both those places. So if I get an opportunity to travel there, most of my travel these days, if I go somewhere, I don't really go on vacations. I just go travel places for work and then try to tack on a few days as vacation.
This wasn't a vacation? You didn't just spend 10 days on holiday in England?
Yeah. Well, I think we figured it out. So I don't know how long I was here. Almost 2 weeks. Because it took me a day to get here. So I left my house the Wednesday before Rat Race. Got here on Thursday, and I'll be leaving Tuesday after Nuclear. So it's just shy.
It's been a random.
Just shy. But yeah. So I've been here for however many nights, and this is my 7th place that I've stayed.
You're welcome.
But it has been a random trip, though, considering.
Considering what, JJ?
Considering it was supposed to be obstacle racing and visiting family. I mean, you've ridden a mechanical horse.
Yes.
40 miles an hour.
Yes. For those that want to know what Margaret's little England UK adventure was, it's almost like the Griswold's European vacation, but only in England. We went on roundabouts.
Many roundabouts.
Many roundabouts that Siri talked to us about every single roundabout. And And so I got here. We headed right up to Newmarket. And Jojo's sister lives in Newmarket, and I actually come from basically the American equivalent of Newmarket, where there's horse sales. The National Museum of Horse Racing is in the town, the oldest consecutively running thoroughbred race course. So we went to the racing museum in Newmarket, right near the Jockey Club, and got to ride a mechanical horse, which Jojo may have put my ride on Instagram, and her ride is sitting on my phone.
Where it shall stay. But you can see Margaret riding a mechanical horse on Instagram.
And then from there, we got invited to ride I don't really know what your sister invited us to.
Yeah, I don't know if it was really invite, more like tell.
Yeah, so we ended up going to a triathlon type road biking clinic put on by her sister, in which I was told to ride around cones and stuff, and I haven't been on a road bike in years, so that was fun and interesting. Then Rat Race was Rat Race, and then I saw family and Bradford on Avon, and did the touristy thing in Bath, and saw some stuff, and before that did Avebury Stones, and Ginger dry needled me and worked everything out
until you've been stabbed by Ginger.
And then met back up with Jojo and went to her presentation at her university and sat in the back of the room just like a random stranger, and her lectures I think were very confused. and then we went to Nuclear and Surface Mutter and Nuclear and Nut.
Met Faye for dinner.
Oh, yeah, we met
Faye's
Faye.
feeder.
Yeah, we went Faye's for dinner. She made fajitas and the most massive desserts I've ever eaten.
Faye.
She's a feeder.
And let me shower, which I hadn't showered in 2 days.
And
so
used your washing machine and her tumble dryer, and we stacked our dishes in a dishwasher.
Yes.
We are civilized here in England.
Yes, and the only reason that's funny is prior to this trip, an unnamed friend said, "Oh, well, when you go over there, not many people have dryers, like tumble dryers," and also said that it's even rarer to find a dishwasher.
What sort of anthropology book is this person reading?
Well, they've been over here a lot lately.
Do they just think, right, well, when British people wake up, they have full English, and then for lunch they have fish and chips, and then when they come home and have their tea, they just have, I don't know, more fish and chips. 11s, high tea.
Yeah,
I did have cream tea twice.
So this, the dress that you're going to go and get fitted for is actually going to be too big for you by the wedding.
Yeah, I weighed myself. I've gained 7 pounds last week and a half.
Which is like super ironic, because when we all went out to Ohio, we were like clamoring for something that wasn't carbs. Like we were just like, I just want broccoli. I'm just astonished that you've come over here and put weight on.
Well, I don't eat sweets, and so all I've been doing is eating sweets and carbs.
Been stealing sweets out of kids' hands on the way around races.
To be fair,
no, they hand it to you.
Dates and figs,
mate. Right. So we were in a lake at Dirty Weekend, and everyone's like, "Oh, I can't really be arsed with this because it's actually really cold." So we're all like slogging it out the lake. Margaret looks pretty jolly, and I'm like, "Well, she looks a bit chuffed with herself." She looks down, and then she looks all proud over at me. She goes, "Well, at least my dates and figs are still warm."
You old lady.
No, but I was like, is this some sort of American euphemism that I don't know about? Like, because the water was definitely neck height, so I don't know how her figs and dates are still warm.
To be fair, what I meant to say, because I was freezing, is dry. Yeah. But I said warm. So I had put figs and dates in a little plastic bag and rolled it all up so hopefully no water would get into it. And then we had just gone through one of the lakes. And I checked and I'm like, oh, and I said warm instead of dry. Yeah.
But still, they were literal figs and dates. It's not a euphemism that we've missed out on.
No, they're delicious.
Oh, she's such an old lady.
I was travelling around Dirty Weekend. When I finished, I had a packet and a half of shot blocks, a flapjack, and my inhaler in my bra, and underneath my boobs have been cut to shreds. I had like actual cuts. They were bleeding
Oh.
because just unbeknownst to me, the wrapper's been like rubbing against my skin.
Let that be a lesson to you.
It was horrendous. It looked like I'd had a bra made of brambles.
Oh, that's gross. But to be fair, when Margaret arrived back at the tent and proceeded to remove her clothing, she began to remove her knee-high socks, and out popped so much food from her socks. Flapjacks. What else was in there?
Sugar.
I think
Lord Lucan.
the Haribo.
Packets of Haribo. Just the amount you couldn't even work out that she was carrying anything, and it was like a Harry Potter tent. You just go in there and it's just so vast.
Well, you'll never be hungry when you're around,
Well-
which is nice.
Okay, so I think to be fair is that the aid stations there were unbelievable.
Yeah?
They were ridiculous, weren't they?
There was so much food, and so if you go to a lot of the races in the U.S., you're lucky to get anything more than water.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there's not snacks with them. There's not.
So
there's
you
not.
went a little bit mental, like, oh my god, there's snacks.
I mean, the salt and vinegar crisps on course.
I know, you were so amused that because I just carried on with the obstacles with these bags of crisps in my hand, so I'm like jumping on crisps and then jumping over the obstacle. I'm like jumping over hay bales with this bag of crisps in my hand, like going through the tyre mangle, being like, don't drop my crisps. Just, we're pretty serious athletes. I just thought you might like to
and
know.
then I have to say, the other thing too is then the hot shower at Rat Race, then the hot shower at Nuclear.
Much
and,
appreciated.
And then Wayne being very nice and turning on the generator so I had a hot shower after nuts
Bless
too.
him.
But
It just makes me bathe in the lake. You bloody royalty.
well, we were on the other side too. But the really the whole Rat Race facilities, I know that you pay for it and what the camping fees are and stuff.
Pay for it.
But the fact that you had them, I remember you said to me when we were in the shower in our little individual stalls or whatever.
Individuals.
Yeah. We're not just all standing. People can imagine whatever, but we're all in these stalls and they're great. I mean, it's like a porta potty sort of stall looking, but you're in there and you push the button and it's like this beautiful hot water coming down and you're yelling like, Margaret, how's your shower? And I'm like, this is the best obstacle on the entire course. Because it was so cold too. But then we had, at Nuclear, they did one thing at the finish line that I'd always wanted at every single race, especially the cold races. I guess for you guys it wasn't that cold this weekend, but it was still chilly at times.
Yeah.
And we had a hot cup of tea.
Yeah, mate.
That was like, I was like, I don't, we get a lot of times in the States like a beer, or they hand you it's freezing, you're shaking because you're so cold.
Yeah.
And they're like, here's a cold whatever drink from whatever the beverage sponsor is. And
It's usually something sweet that makes you feel sick.
Yeah, or it's like a milk type product or something. And you're like, all I want, and I've said this for you, I'm like, all I want is like a hot cup of tea, coffee, hot chocolate, like
we are good at that.
broth.
Over here. We have there's hot squash at Nuts. There's hot chocolate at Tough Guy, R.I.P. And there's tea at Nuclear. I mean, I actively fantasize from like 3K about cups of tea.
And to be fair, with Nuclear, when it's a blackout, you get it in your own mug.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a reason to come back, innit?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was just amazing. It was one of those things where I'm like, they did what I've always wanted. I mean, I know that sounds really silly, and some people will be like, oh, come on, the beer's the best thing if they're Americans listening. And I'm like, no, I don't have the beer. The free beer is great after you've warmed up, showered. I remember my first Tough Mudder, you're in the finish chute, and they're like, here's your, like, whatever, bar, whatever, and here's your free beer, and here's your headband, and here's your...
And you're like, mate, I'm not an octopus. Come on.
So I mean, I think that was awesome, and, love to come back and do more, and, I heard that Nuclear, what would you, that's one where you actually go in the bunker? Yeah, that one sounds really fun. And, Nuts, I don't know if I'd make it very far in winter Nuts. I don't do cold well now after a pretty bad hypothermia. about years ago. But I try, but I still don't love the cold. And as Amy, you and I talked about for hours,
we just could not be bothered with the cold. In fact, we found like builders sacks at Dirty Weekend. We were like, sod this, let's just get in the bags for a little bit. They were so snugly warm. That was your favourite bit of the whole race, wasn't it?
That was fun. That was fun.
Okay, so we're going to wrap it up now. But before you go, before we chuck you on that plane, what do you think of the people of OCR in the UK? They are wankers.
No, stop. As my driver. No, as I feel like this is Amy right now. It's lovely. Everyone's lovely. I can't say it in an accent because every time I try to say an accent here, I get made fun of. Or I get told I sound like Jojo's giving me a look after spending many, many, many hours in a car with me over the last week and change. No, I mean, everybody's been great. You know, I really like the congenial feel. Like, you guys will hang out after the race together, hang out together. It's an atmosphere we've had in the US, and some races still have it, but there's other races that it's maybe because they're just so big, or you guys have a core group that sort of, no matter what team you're on, that sort of travels around. But everybody's been great here. It's been wonderful. Mudsicle, UK Mud Queens. There's like all. No, you know, everybody's been great. Obviously, I met Mudsicle first, and then you know, then the last year and a half, Jojo, you and I have become pretty good friends, and yeah.
Do you have like a big group of women like the Mud Queens that are like super supportive and nice and lovely to each other?
We've had different groups in the US, and I think that there's you know, I was one of the founding members of Spartan Chicks when that got going in 2011. I mean, it's an online community still, but it's really just an online community.
Yeah.
And
it's not quite the same there as us.
No,
we are different in that respect, I think.
Yeah, we have a lot of regional groups.
Oh, fair.
There's a lot of regional clubs sort of thing, and some are very active with each other, and some of them even do other races together outside of obstacle racing now.
Yeah.
And then it just depends where you live regionally. Like where I live, it's not obstacle racing. They have two groups, but it's not a big obstacle racing scene. Like, we'll drive 5-6 hours to and call that a close race.
Yeah.
Where there's other parts of the country where you can live, and there's an obstacle race like every weekend, almost all year round, within like a 2-3 hour drive. Yeah. So it's a massive country, and so I think that's what makes it a lot different, where you can pretty much drive end to end in a day.
Yeah. I feel like I should also mention, if you hear like weird snorty noises by the microphone, it's because Remy is like practically asleep on top of it. She keeps interjecting with little sighs and moans and groans, and I don't want you to think it's me.
Oh, yeah.
Oh dear. Well, on that note, I think we should all make like Remy and go to sleep.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay, she can't keep her.
Thank you so much for joining us, Margaret.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, buddy.
Thanks, ladies.
It's been lovely having you in both the podcast and physical form. You are a babe.
Indeed. Okay. Goodbye.
Bye, you lot.
Goodbye.